Back again with another little video. This one is just to reinforce something I discussed in class last night, where we haven't really looked at all the different file types we can create when we're working with images. So I'll go into my bridge again. I've got this new stock photo. Again, this won't be available to you guys if you weren't there last night, but you'll be able to get it next time you're in, and it doesn't really matter what image you use for this particular exercise here. This is just really to show you some aspects of creating files for different purposes. So I've opened up this birdie file in well, hopefully it will open in Photoshop any tick of the clock. It's taken a little bit of time here, and this computer must be getting a little bit tired. I might downsize this image a little bit to make it easier to work with. So right now it's 5,174 pixels wide, or nearly 50 megabytes in size. I don't need much size for this, so I'll bring it down to 1,000 pixels wide. And of course, you notice down in the bottom left hand side of the screen there, you can see that we're now looking at this image at 8.3% of its size. If I go up to view and go to actual pixels, I can see the real pixels I've got. I've got the brush, a rather large brush. Actually, here's an interesting thing. Notice that since the last video I was working on, I had my brush at 400 pixels wide, and I had it set to an opacity of 20 there, you might notice. Now, a good idea every now and again is just to go through into any tool that you happen to have selected. Go to this little icon here, the gear type icon, and just tell it you want to reset all tools, and that puts all the tools back to the defaults that they're set at. So now our brush is only 13 pixels in size, and it's 100% opacity, and all the other tools will be reset to what their defaults are. Okay, what I want to do here is just make a very quick selection of the birdie. I'm not going to be too fussy here, and then when I've got it reasonably selected, I chose this one because it's not too difficult to select with a fairly contrasting background. But of course, the harder things to select are normally backgrounds that are very close to the subject. So this might get me close to what I need here. I'll just hold down my Alt key now to get rid of that little bit of green in the middle there. And that's going to be near enough a sheep station for our purposes. I'm not going to be fussy with the claws and whatnot there. So, and now I'm just going to make a mask of that. So again, to make a mask, I'll just bring my layers panel up here. There's this icon here that if I mouse over it, it says add a mask. And of course that, I'll just put that layers panel back where it belongs. And now we've got this birdie that's kind of cut out. And notice we get the checkerboard effect for the background to show that it's transparent. So I'm just going to, I'm going to lose the back of this here. I'm going to reduce the size of the image for purposes you'll see in a tick. And this will actually delete the crop pixels, so it will make a smaller file. And so double click that to make and I'll just go control 0 on the PC, command 0 on the Mac to fit the thing into the window. And you can see what we've got here. Actually, notice too that if I use a white paintbrush, so I've just made sure I've selected the mask, I'll switch my foreground color to white, I'll get a paintbrush, and I can paint that foot back in again there, the claw or whatever you call it on a birdie. If I do want that back again. So you can paint things, but when you're using a mask, the beauty of what the mask is, you can paint things back in if you've lost them. And then if I switch back to black again, I can paint bits out that I don't want, obviously. So I'm not going to be too fussy, as I said, though. Okay, so we've got a transparency there if we're in Photoshop, and I can now save that image as, I'll do a save as, and I'm just going to save it to my desktop, and I'm going to save it as birdie. And I'll put it on the desktop and save that. And now it's asking me if I want to maximize compatibility, and usually you would want to. I don't know why you wouldn't. Okay, now the different files I can save this as. The first one I'll do is I'll do a save as, and I'll save it as a JPEG. So I've got a drop down here, and if I go to save birdie as JPEG, it allows me to see what size the file is going to be. So there's 112.5 kilobytes, and it reckons it's a large file. I can change this slider and it will change the relative file size. I'm going to cancel that though, because there's a better way of doing this. If I go to save for web, now I'm hoping that this dialog is going to fit. No, it doesn't quite. Oh, there we are. I can fit it. Okay, here's my original 955K. If I make it into JPEG, it's going to be 51K. So you can see it's a massive difference in size. But notice that in the JPEG, this is what the result's going to be when I save this. It no longer has the transparency. So I'll save that anyway and call it Birdie and leave it on my desktop again and call it Birdie JPEG. And now I'll do another save as, save for web, I beg your pardon. And instead of JPEG this time, I'm going to choose a GIF. Now the GIF has transparency, but it's very good for solid colors. It's not much good for transitional colors. So if I change the number of colors from 256 to 8 or 16, you can see this kind of effect it has there. I'll make it 256 though, and I'll save that as a GIF, put it on my desktop, Birdie GIF. So I can use the same name because the file extension is going to change in each case. And now I'm going to save for web again, and this time here's the preferred choice. If you want transparency, PNG 24. If you want transparency and you want to render continuous tones well, then this is going to be your best choice. Now let's have a look at why you'd use these different ones. So I'm going to go into a new Word document here. I'm going to put in my page layout, I'm going to make the page color blue. And now if I go to insert a picture, I'll try inserting Birdie from my desktop as a JPEG, and notice immediately that the JPEG no longer has any the JPEG just cannot have transparency. So now if I go to insert picture and put in the GIF, I'll just make that smaller so it fits beside there hopefully. Okay, there's the GIF, and you can see it does have transparency. So if you're putting it on top of another picture, or if you're putting a colored background, this is the kind of thing you might want. And finally, if I go insert picture and put in the JPEG, the PNG, I beg your pardon, then we've got the transparency there, and we've got the best kind of rendering for the transparency. So where's my little... Actually, I'll just make sure I've got the PNG. Now, why am I missing one? Let me just try that again. I'll click in here, insert picture, and go PNG, and make sure I've got the PNG. I'm not sure if that's the GIF now or the PNG, but trust me, the best version of the continuous tone is going to be your PNG rather than the GIF. Use GIF for logos and things by all means, but use PNG for images that have continuous tone, like pictures or photos. And if you're not concerned about having that white background on a transparent thing, then by all means use the JPEG, because it's going to be the smaller of the file sizes. So if I actually show my desktop here, and I'm not sure how well this is going to come up here, I'll just get rid of all those, and here's my Birdie JPEG, and as I mouse over this, it's going to show that the properties are, it's going to tell me the size of 52 KBs, the GIF is 128 kilobytes, or 136 kilobytes on disk, and the PNG is 488, much bigger than all the rest, but still going to give me the best result if I need that transparency. Oh, and the PSD file, by the way, was 1.22 megs, so a lot bigger. Okay, that's enough of that exercise.